Now that the August 5th contempt of court hearing has come and gone this past Thursday, and everybody got to see what happened on the outside of the courtroom, everybody wants to know what happened inside the courtroom, and I'm about to share it with you to the best of my recollection. Marilyn and her lawyer, myself and my lawyer, were invited into the courtroom. And while the court was not a closed court, meaning that the judge didn't state it was a closed court, it appeared as though the judge was not going to allow anybody to come inside unless they were a witness. As a matter of fact, one fan entered the courtroom and the judge told the fan to exit the courtroom until they were called as a witness if they were a witness. That was awkward. Very awkward because it wasn't a closed courtroom. And yet at the same time, the judge started the entire hearing saying, this is not standard, this is unusual, we don't have to go the conventional route. Because it is very unusual. So, fans were there. There's no doubt, and we appreciate that so much, the support from the fan base. But the fans weren't in there. Although one person was allowed in the courtroom, as the judge asked what the purpose was for the individual in the courtroom, she said, "I'm writing a story on this." And the judge allowed her to stay there. So, freedom of press, but I guess not entertainment. I don't know. I mean, I always thought that if you wanted to go down to the court on any given day and jump into any given courtroom hearing, that it's public information. All of the information is public information. So maybe that information can be gotten at a later point in time, but I'm going to try and give it all to you right here, right now. The judge asked both lawyers, hey, how do you want to proceed? What do you want to do? Again, not conventional. This is an unusual situation. And again, I'm paraphrasing to the best of my ability because we didn't record. I can't remember everything. These are high stress situations and circumstances, and you're not going to remember everything. It's like the police interviewing 5 different witnesses at the same exact crime scene, and they get 5 different stories. You can't remember everything. But the judge did ask, how would you guys like to proceed? And Marilyn's lawyer stated that he wanted to proceed first. And so Marilyn's lawyer did bring in a number of different individuals to testify on her behalf, including her daughter, including her granddaughter, which some of you are having conversations with still to this day, which honestly just boggles my mind that she would continue. Well, it just boggles my mind. And also an individual that works at Pell Electric across the street where some of my stolen items are. And then Marilyn was put on the stand as well. So in a nutshell, the individual that works at Pell Electric across the street testified that I'm a liar, said that Jeremy lied about this. I was an eyewitness and Jeremy was lying. That's in a nutshell. That's in a paraphrase. So that was unique to say the least, especially since I wasn't even in Ohio based on her testimony to even be a part or witness of her testimony of what she was claiming that I was lying about. So that was, and I know that was confusing for you. And if it was confusing for you, trust me, it was confusing for me. I'm sitting there thinking, what is going on right now? This is complete and total insanity. And that being said, obviously, there will be absolutely no parsonage of Pell Electric or it's tainted relationship now, to say the least. Also, then Marilyn's daughter got up on the stand and gave testimony that they went into the facility after the June 7th agreed upon date of departure based on the key, the water, the electric, and that my rented facility. And here's the interesting part. Her daughter did give testimony that her mom was renting to me. Very, very interesting, considering that Marilyn and her lawyer, Drug Druschel, the entire time have been declaring that I was never a legal tenant. Never, ever a legal tenant. And yet her daughter gave sworn in testimony that her mom was leasing to me. So interesting. And the court has recorded that. Honestly, I'm not sure how to get that from the court, but I know my lawyer can get that from the court. And then her daughter also gave testimony that I had left nothing but garbage, complete and total garbage. I guess, some of you have bought a Dolomite Rudy Ray Moore autograph. I've got tens of thousands of them. Well, I did until they were stolen, destroyed, trashed. Those sell, and you already know that because we have all the proof, $100 a piece on eBay. $100 a piece for tens of thousands of autographs. But it's all garbage in her testimony, okay? So that's her testimony. Her granddaughter got up to stand and stated that she contacted me and that I was threatening her. So that I was being very threatening. So when she messaged me, which you saw that in a previous video, which was foolish on her part in the first place, I stated, "You're next." And in context of "you're next," she was next. Her communication was in the next video. And I also blocked her so that she couldn't incriminate herself or her grandmother anymore. And so that was interesting. That tried to portray me as a person that is somehow physically threatening. If physical was even the word that was used, I'm trying to recall exactly. I do know that Druschel said, "Is this the way that you approach everybody in your life?" And I thought that was really interesting because he obviously doesn't watch What the Hales, because most of the people in my life, I give and I give and I give, and then I give some more. Doug then called Marilyn up to the stand, and Marilyn swore in, and she began to give her testimony. Marilyn very, very clearly stated that she was unable to get the water turned on in the appropriate amount of time because she didn't know. Now, this is extremely interesting because whenever you call the water company, they schedule the time and the day with you. So for her to claim she doesn't know, all you have to do is call the water company and say, "Absolutely, we told her it's this time." We already have it. We have it in video. Remember, they came out, they put a tag on the door. They said, "Hey, you missed your appointment. Call this number to reschedule the appointment." That wasn't our responsibility to schedule the appointment. There's nothing I can personally do. And it's funny because it came up in court that I never said anything about it. Well, in our agreement, I wasn't responsible to do that. Marilyn's part was to return the key, turn on the power, turn on the water. That's simple. The agreement wasn't Jeremy turns on the water. It was Marilyn's turn on the water. So Marilyn, she did give testimony that she was late and that she did not meet that June 7th deadline, which obviously the June 7th deadline is this major deadline because this is the issue. This has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen for this to happen, right? Cause and effect. Key, water, electric, vacate. That's what has to happen. Cause, effect. But it was key, electric, no water, no vacate. I mean, it's a conditional contract. And if the first parts of the contract aren't completed, then the reality is, does the rest of the contract have to be completed? And that's a big limbo area right now that a judge has to decide. Now, it was also discussed the aspect of the theft of personal private property. And we do know, and it was discussed with great length, that Marilyn stated she had no idea who gave away my property. But we already know who gave away the property because we have all the texts and all the communication from the individual who accepted it. So, kind of easy to figure that out. Curtis gave it to Robbie at Pell Electric across the street. Now, Robbie's been trying to get some of these items for quite a while now. And so I do not think that Robbie was innocent at all in his attempts to get these. But now that he knows it's stolen property, then obviously, all of a sudden he's innocent. He's just trying to help. So again, another damaged relationship with an individual at Pell Electric across the street. And again, no parsonage from me to Pell Electric. That's just not going to happen any longer anymore. And so that's going to be strained for sure. And And it's a shame because somebody's been trying to talk to me about the building, buying the building over there as well. But at any rate, I digress. Marilyn did share that she had the trailer, the 20-foot cargo trailer, towed under oath. Now, I know what you're thinking, but she had to tell you where it was, right? What she stated, and again, I'm just trying to remember everything to the best of my recollection. Lots of things going on in my life, lots of stress that day, lots of people there, but no recordings. And that's why it's so, so important that we record, because there is no slant or there is no one side. It's just the facts. This is what happened. For example, when I got assaulted at the warehouse, it's not slanted to one side or the other. It's just, look, this is what happened. This is what happened. But she stated that the police told her that she could have it towed. Now, you already know, if you're a fan of what the Hales, that the Wooster police have multiple times have told us, they told her that they would not tow it. I don't recall them ever saying anything about letting her know if she could get it towed by somebody else. So that is up in limbo, and I have no desire to contact Wooster police to see if they actually said that or not. That's really neither here nor there. It's towed, but we don't know by who, and we don't know where, and we don't know what the Hales has happened with the actual trailer yet. Doug, Marilyn's lawyer, obviously tried to portray Marilyn as an 80-year-old on a very, very fixed income, working at Hobby Lobby, and had to borrow $3,000 from her brother-in-law just to turn the water back on. Now, you guys are thinking the exact same thing I'm thinking. Why was the water turned off in the first place? You never, ever turn utilities off on your tenants. Oh, remember, they kept claiming I'm not a tenant, but all of their communication with me claims me as a rental tenant. And Stephanie, her daughter, said my mom leased to him, and there's no doubt whatsoever in anybody's mind. She absolutely knew I was there. She absolutely knew I was a tenant. And she has communication with at least 10 people, if not more, in regards to my tenancy there. So, we digress. Marilyn's being portrayed as an 80-year-old who has to borrow money and has to work a job at Hobby Lobby just to make the bills meet. And Jeremy's being portrayed as this mean, arrogant individual who is keeping her from generating any income because she can't sell the property while I'm in the property. Then things turn. I'm on the stand. So all of a sudden I'm up on the stand, and her lawyer questions me first. And frankly, I can't even remember some of the questions. In my opinion, and it is just my opinion, some of the questions were so absurd, so ridiculously absurd, that I kept getting in trouble on how I was actually answering them. So apparently I wasn't giving direct answers, which I can see that completely and totally. For example, Doug Druschel asked, he said, could you or could you have not emptied and vacated the property without the water? And my answer would be, why does that even matter? The water was supposed to be turned on. The agreement wasn't get a key, get electric, vacate by June 7th. The agreement was get a key, get the electric, get the water, vacate. And so I was getting in trouble for not answering the question yes or no, because to me, the question was null and void. It's not null and void, though, in the court system. So the judge was actually getting frustrated with me. The judge, 2 times, to my recollection, he said, let me rephrase the question and ask Jeremy to see if I could get a direct answer. And I don't remember exactly what those 2 questions were. But I do recall stating that, I do recall Doug Druschel saying, well, could you or could you have not had your employees, that you didn't need running water, couldn't your employees just walked down to the gas station? And my response, and I got in trouble for this, was, how many of your employees walked to the gas station to use the bathroom at your law firm? And I got in trouble for it because you're not allowed to ask questions back. You have to answer questions. And so that is a way to answer questions. It's called the Socratic method based on Socrates. You ask a question to answer a question. So the person gets self-realization or self-actualization. But that doesn't exactly work in the court of law. You need a straight up yes or no answer. And my answer then was, and I got in trouble for that. I mean, when I say trouble, you have to understand the judge. Somebody told me at some point that the judge, the individual that was writing the story, said that the judge actually rolled his eyes. And you know what? I'm sure he did. And I'm sure he has every right to do that. Not only am I frustrated, not only is Marilyn frustrated, the judge is frustrated. Everybody in this situation is frustrated. And he says, you have to answer the question, yes or no. I said, no. And then Doug Drew said, your employees can't walk over to another bathroom. I said, no, they refuse to work in those conditions, as normal employees would. Now, here would be my response, but I couldn't say this in court, right? Doug Druschel, this is the worst part of town in the entire city of Wooster. Would you allow your wife to walk from that warehouse? And by the way, that walk is going to be probably 20 minutes to a gas station. And then walk back, and you'd be okay with that? I mean, we're talking about your wife, maybe your daughter, maybe your son, maybe 2 daughters and a wife. Are you okay with that? Now, don't get me wrong. I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to prove Jeremy's a jerk and just refuses to leave. And he understands what I'm trying to do. The conditions weren't met, therefore I don't have to leave. If the conditions are electric, water, key, then leave, that's what it all goes down to. So in regards to not having the water, I claim safety is an issue. Not only is it a safety issue for employees to not have water there, but the entire area is a safety issue. There are homeless and drug addicts everywhere. And it goes beyond that. We have had stalkers show up at the warehouse. And we don't normally talk about those things actually, I don't think we've ever shared it before. But it's a safety issue that when the employees are at the warehouse, the doors are to remain locked and shut at all times unless there's some significant reason for them to be open, because the area is so poor and unsafe. All in all, when it came right down to it with the closing arguments, and I think, and I'm not 100% for sure, but I think I was at the courthouse for about 3 hours. I did not anticipate 3 hours. Frankly, I don't think anybody anticipated 3 hours. But, you know what? Before we get to closing arguments, I got in trouble for another thing. So we were talking, and I was up on stand talking about the trailer. And I shared that trailer's resale value in today's market is $4,000 to $5,000. And that's exactly what it is, $4,000 to $5,000. If I were to sell that trailer right now to any other individual, I would get $4,000 to $5,000. Now, in the court documentation, I valued it at $2,500. I always undervalue, you guys know that if I show values of anything I'm reselling, I undervalue it in the videos. That's what I do so people don't go, you inflate the prices. But what I had done is I sold the trailer to Brian for $1,500. Now, I gave him a steal of a deal. There's no doubt about it. And I give lots of people deals. There's no doubt about it. You've seen it on the channel. So here's the underlying issue. The judge was very, very upset because Brian got up on stand and stated, well, Jeremy sold me the trailer for $1,500. And then the judge said, well, you told us it was $4,000 to $5,000, but you're only claiming $2,500, but you sold it to him for $1,500. So here's the issue with the judge has. Jeremy's claiming its value, and now he's saying, but it sold for this, but you're claiming this in the middle, right? Well, here's the issue. For me, I'm not the judge, right? The judge has to work through all this, but I'm not the judge. The value of the item is not the same as what I sold it for. This scan disc flash drive, I paid $400 for. If I sell it for $10 to you, what's the value? Is it $10 Or is it $400? The value is what somebody is willing to pay for it in the current market. So you have to get comps. If I'm to ask the value of my house, how do I find the value of my house? I look at what's selling around me, and my house right now that I'm sitting in is comped at $300,000. All right. I didn't sell it though, but its value is $300,000. That would be a comp value on it. So I'm giving what the value of what it's worth, not what I sold it for. And it's not in Brian's name. So even though he gave me $1,500, the transaction never was completed because the trailer was stolen and the paperwork was never completed. So that was a pretty major issue, that we have the trailer in question that is missing. Does Jeremy own it? Does Brian own it? What is its value? But Jeremy's already been paid for it. And it became this huge mess. And the judge was not happy. Regardless of a judge being happy with me or happy or unhappy with me or Marilyn let's get right down to it. The whole thing is a mess, right? You know it. I know it. It doesn't matter if a judge is happy with you or unhappy with you. It comes down to the law, and the judge has to look at the law. So in closing arguments, Marilyn's side said, hey, Marilyn has not been able to close on this property. It was set to close. She sold the property for $110,000. She offered it to me for $100,000. I said no. She sold it for $110,000. It was set to close on May 7th. Obviously, it didn't close on May 7th because we didn't even have trial until May 10th. Now, that jury trial turned into an actual pre-hearing, and then we made the agreement to be out by June 7th. So April, May, June, a month. That would have given them a month to push off the sale of the property. But what happened? No water. Well, in my mind, and I'm only saying in my mind because it's not up to me, it's not up to anybody else, it's up to a judge to determine. If A, B, and C, water, don't happen, then D doesn't happen. Oh, that reminds me of another thing I got in trouble for. The gal across the street said, I've seen them coming in and out and bringing more stuff to the warehouse. And so the judge point blank asked me, he said, you were ordered to vacate. Why are you bringing more things to the warehouse? And I said, well, if I was ordered to vacate, there was absolutely nothing in the agreement that said, if I'm ordered to vacate by June 7th, okay, that's the agreement, to vacate. There was nothing in our agreement that said I can or I cannot do anything on June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd, June 4th, June 5th, June 6th. But what you have is this intent, right? So if the intent is written to vacate, what they want to see is vacating. And we were vacating. Now, we couldn't do it at the fast enough pace because we didn't have water, safe environment. And so if all of that would have happened, we would have had key, water, and electric all at the same time. Would have never been an issue. Would have been out. Whole thing would be done, right? So easy. So easy. All you have to do is do what you said you were going to do, and the whole thing is gone. But those things didn't happen. So that was an issue too. Why haven't you vacated? Why are you bringing more stuff? And I said, well, there's nothing in regards to our agreement that said there's nothing that I can't do something on any other given day. I mean, the agreement was A, B, and C happen. D, I'm out. I vacate. My part of the agreement was to vacate on a date. It didn't say anything about not doing anything on the other days up to that date. Again, it is what it is. It is what it is. Regardless of whether I was vacating on those days or not, Doug Druschel, Marilyn, want compensated 3% for every day that I was in there that she didn't have the $110,000 for the sale of the property. That's what they're asking for. They want compensated for the water. They want compensated for the electric. They want compensated for the insurance. They want compensated. Legal fees, lawyer fees, compensated. Okay. In the court of law, you can ask to be compensated for anything. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. Doesn't mean you're not going to get it either. So basically, they said Jeremy did not hold up to his end of the bargain. He was not out by June 7th. Then my lawyer's closing arguments. Listen, we should never be here. All she had to do was turn the water on. The scheduled appointment was made. She neglected it. Jeremy would have been out. And then when the water was turned on, you locked him out again. And when he actually had all three things, the water, the electric, the key, He was out. The original agreement was 28 days to vacate. And when I didn't have all three of those things. And then when I did have all three of those things, I got out in under 21 days. It was that easy. You just have to, that's it. Hold up your end of the agreement. And all we ask as far as compensation is legal fees. I mean, that's it. So you've got one side going, Jeremy, you're responsible for all of this. We want you to pay for everything because you didn't hold up to your end of the agreement. And then you got my side going, no, none of this matters because you didn't hold up to your end of the agreement. Your part comes first, then I vacate. And now what happens? The judge did not make a decision. And typically when that happens, the judge isn't going to make a decision because the judge most likely is unclear on the actual law that has been impacted. So the judge is going to go back and look through the actual laws to say, okay, what Marilyn did, was that illegal? What Jeremy did, is that illegal? And then the judge will make a decision. Anywhere from today's the weekend, anywhere from Monday to maybe 2 weeks out, we may finally have a decision and find out what the Hales is going to happen with all of this craziness.